Hello everyone. Welcome back, I guess, after the holidays and all. My apologies for the delay from the last stream to this one. Um, I was out for a little bit of time, but the plan for today is continuing on with some of the animations, the physics, the player, and some camera collision. So just as a quick preview of what we're about to do today is here's my test project that I've been kind of working in parallel before doing these streams. So let's see, just open up an example level. So right now, for the player, we don't have a way of knowing if he's under something, she, they're under something, right? So basically, we don't know if, let me just turn on proxies. So for example, if it goes under something, currently the way I have my keys set up is that I need to hold down my crouch button. So meaning that if you release it, it's going to go back into standing, and the standing physicalization is going to be applied. But what if you go under something and you release the crouch button? Well, you don't want to stand through whatever's on top of you, be it a rock, cave, whatever. So what I've ended up doing right now, you'll see that this is sometimes not really working as expected, but that this is I've removed. So if you look at the top, there's that little is crouch press button equals 0. So you'll notice that that is I'm not pressing it, so it's still in crouch position, and the crouch physicalization is applied. One of the things that I've been running into, and I'm not sure if this is an issue with my code or if it's just the engine, the physics engine, is that it kind of also part of it, it depends on the position of this. So let's try this again here. So yeah, this is something that I've been running into. Not entirely sure what might be causing it. But we'll get into it, and we'll hopefully we'll figure that out. All right, so let me close this out, and we'll go into our stream project here. So let's open up solutions, and during the stream I'll also make use of that little hot reload that I've done in the last stream, and I found it very useful, and it's pretty easy to use. Okay, so first of all, what I wanted to start off with is we need to be able to tell that we're under something. So what that would need is another, just like we're doing the camera collisions, a ray shooting up, and when it collides with something and it's at a certain distance, we know that, okay, you know what, we can't stand, so we better keep the current physicalization. So this is going to be a straight copy and paste from that old project that we did in 5.3. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and just refresh some of the things that we've done. Okay, so we named that function shoot ray from head. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and let's place it right after we do the camera collision raycast. So let's see where that is. I believe it's somewhere around here as far as I can remember, if I remember correctly. Where are you? Raycast, I believe is what was that called. Let's do a quick search. maybe maybe I didn't put that into a separate function. I've just put it right in here. Okay, well anyway, so let's just paste it somewhere down here, right after revive. On the other hand, I'm thinking maybe let's see if we, since we're gonna do, let's first put it in the header because we need that here. So shoot ray from head. It's pretty self-description there. So let's go ahead and create definition, and I'll save this here. It's kind of small, so it's tough to see. So let's find that. So now it's shoot right from head. There we go. So let's paste that code, and we'll quickly go over it. Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, we need, for our ray hit, we need the starting position of where the ray is shooting from. So in my case, I'm just going to get the my player's position, and which is going to be at the player's feet. And then if we're crouching, I'm going to shoot it from 1.5 meter position. And also, this is something to keep in mind. This could interfere with where I mean, you got to keep this in mind whenever you do your little low positioning objects, you know, that you want to crouch under. So you might want to have those at somewhere above 1.5 or 1.5 meters from the player's feet. That's what I mean. Okay, so then we do our ray hit. We need a distance from where to hit it to, and we have the direction, which is going to be up. I believe I'm not really using this distance for anything, so maybe we'll be able to. Yeah, I think I was using it for the direction initially, but I figured out that I don't really need it if I can just set this to always be shooting up. So we can probably remove this from here. Okay, so you'll notice that just like before, we use this this Boolean, which is if it can stand or if it can't stand. So can and can't. Hopefully that makes sense. And so let's add that in here as well. So we want a Boolean, which is item can stand. So just for safety, let's also initialize this. So we'll set it to true in our initialize function, where we right here at the top we have initialize. And let's see, I mostly placed all of these somewhere down here. So when the game starts, we know it can stand, so we'll have that like that. So let's see, where do we add our shoot ray from head? Okay, there we go. So you'll notice that we have, like I said, where we want to start shooting the ray, our direction, and so also in here, this is something that might be causing some of my issues, is that I need to avoid collision with the player, so or with the player's proxy. So let's go ahead and use the little thing that we added on for our camera collisions. And let's see where that is. That should be somewhere around here. So we have our skip entities and get physics, and I think we can copy all of this, and we'll do a little bit of replacement around here. So let's see, there we go, we have this right here. So this is right here. So we have our skip entities, Maybe this is kind of kind of doing a little bit too much. Not entirely sure, but I think this should be okay. So let's get some of the other code as well. So destination, that was this, which is the player entity get world position. I'm wondering if I should just use this entire piece of code. But I think for the purpose of this stream, I'm not going to overly complicate it, and I'm just going to leave it as is. Maybe one thing that I can do is keep this part here for the physics. So, but I can copy this. So I guess we can comment this part out, and because we're just going to use this here for the object types. So we'll remove that, just like that. And this one can go away. So let's make sure we get our player entity from here. All right, let's add that in. Okay, perfect. We got no errors. So one thing that we want to test now is actually call this and see if our persistent debug statements are being triggered, and if they act accordingly to the player being under something or not being under something. So, hey, Laura. Yeah, I was doing some streams, before Christmas, but there wasn't anybody on it. So, but yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. Okay, so let's call this out, and this is going to be called. We'll need to call this this shooting ray from head. Okay, so let's call that. This is going to be in our update. So an event update, entity event update. So I'll place it right after update camera. I think this could be a good place to call it. Okay, so as I was mentioning earlier, we're going to make use of that hot reload little functionality that is actually very useful. I mean, I found it very useful to me. But one thing that we need to do is actually, I think last time we did this, our local Windows debugger was the the game launcher. So let's go ahead and actually use the editor. So I'm going to stop this here, and let's switch that up and see if that works. So I'm going to go into properties. If you go to debugging, you'll see that right now it's set to the game launcher. So we'll want to browse, and we want to browse for sandbox. So sandbox is right here. Let's click open, apply, and let's see if this works. Apparently it doesn't. It's kind of not entirely sure why that is, because it worked fine for my other project. Oh, maybe I need to, let's see if I set this up. I think it was set up as a startup project to begin with. So I'm not entirely sure why that didn't work. There we go. Okay, maybe that was it. Maybe I just needed to set it up as a startup project. Okay, so let's go into our example here. Jump into game mode. So you'll see right there at the top that it says can stand. So let's go under an object. So as you can see, that thing changed to can't stand. So meaning that, okay, I'm under something, if the player or the user doesn't hold down the C key anymore, then I'm gonna I'm not going to be able to stand. So I'm going to have to keep this animation and this physicalize of crouching. Okay, and now it's back to can't stand. So one thing that I want to do real quick is I want to move that debug down a little bit, and that will also, make use of our little hot reload functionality. So in order to do that, let's go to definition here, and let's move the statement down a little bit. So right now it's at 10, 10, and 2. So Laura, yeah, I haven't done any modeling on the streams, but I was planning on doing one shortly, or actually, I don't know if I'll do it today later on after I'm done with this. It's actually pretty interesting. So yeah, I think I'll probably do it in the afternoon. Okay, so for this text, I have X and Y. So let's make this maybe 15. Let's see if that works. 15. Oh, so don't forget to pause it, so that once you have it saved, hit continue. And let's see, this is going to recompile and apply the changes. Yeah, no, that's great. C++ is pretty cool. I mean, once you get to practice it. So, all right. So let's see if our changes got applied. So yeah, you can see that that can stand got pushed down a little bit. And actually, let's try it again just to make sure that it's not just me looking at it, and because I only pushed it down like 5 pixels. So let's see if I push it down like 55 pixels. If so, yeah, go ahead and then hit continue. Let's see if it's recompiling. Alright, so let's see. And there you go. So that thing got moved down even farther, which, it's kind of overlapping with the standing, which it's not what I really wanted, but just wanted to, show the real hot reload functionality again. So I think this one is probably going to work at around 20, so it doesn't, it's, a little bit out of view, or, a little bit better position to see it. Okay, so again, just hit continue once you made your edits. I'm not entirely sure if this can be done a little quicker. I mean, it's somewhat quick, but I mean, it compiles a lot faster if it's if you stop it, shut the editor down, and then compile it, start the editor again. But I mean, that's a little bit of a hassle. So okay, so now we have our thing, and it knows if it can stand or it can't stand. And all of that is tracked through this this global Boolean. So we'll make use of that in our states. So let's move into our states. So let's see, where were those? Somewhere at the top, right here. All right. So if you remember, we were tracking to see if we are moving, and then if the crouch press is, the button is pressed. So we know that we're going to change our state to moving to standing or moving to crouching, and so on. So what we'll have to add to this is we'll have to, and I'm just going to close a few windows from the engine so I can see my little test project here. So what we'll have to look for now is also if it can stand. So if you let me just see, where was I? Right, so after each one of those crouch presses, once we know that the crouch button is pressed or not, we want to check to see if it can stand, right? Because say the button the crouch button is not pressed and it can't stand, well, then it means that he's under something, right? Be it a rock or kind of a ledge or whatever you want to, whatever the player might go under. So in order to do that, we'll start with we don't need that in all cases, but we'll start with standing. Well, I mean, sorry, with crouching. So once it's in crouch mode, first of all, so what we check for to see are we moving? Then is the crouch button pressed? Then let's see. So I think there might be a little bit of an issue here, and I think this is where my issue with the other one was, because this shouldn't be moving to standing. I think this should be moving to crouching, because let's update this, because if you think about it, so we're currently in crouching and we're moving and the button is pressed, so we don't want to go into a moving to standing state, but we want to do a moving to crouching. So this was my mistake. And then if the crouch button is not pressed, then we do a moving to standing. Okay, so in here as well, we'll also check for our ability to stand. All right, so let's see. First of all, we already know that we're in here. We already know that we're pressing the crouch button, so we don't need to check anything about can or cannot stand. So we're going to jump into what if we're moving, but we're not pressing the crouch button anymore. So in here, we want to check to see if we can't stand. Then what we want to do, we're just going to have to physicalize crouch. And remember, right now we're moving. We have a separate section down here in this else where we're just standing in one spot, Okay, so I'm trying to check OBS every now and again because I've had issues with it just cutting out on me. Okay, so let's see. So we're taking a look and seeing that, okay, I'm crouching and I can't stand, so I'm just going to have to physicalize moving to crouching. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and place it right here. Okay, so and then if else, meaning that I can stand. So, and this was if the physics are not applied yet. So these were, for those of you just looking at the stream, on the last stream we did this, these booleans, stand physics or crouch physics, meaning that if the physics have not been applied yet, then go ahead and apply them. So we only do it, one time, and we're not doing it every single frame. Okay, so so first of all, we're checking to see if we can stand. Then this is actually should be crouch physics here. I've done a kind of a bad copy and paste. All right, so let's see, that one closes there, and then we need another closing bracket. All right, and then so remember, this is moving. All right, so if we can stand, then we continue with physicalize crouch, and this is just moving to crouching. But if we can stand, then we physicalize standing and then moving to standing. Alright, so this was our case for moving. Now this is going to be our case for just standing in one spot. So for example, you're under something and you released any of the WASD keys, so you're just standing there, and you also released your crouch key. So we don't want to stand at that point, right? We still want to be in the crouching state. All right, so let's do that. So if we have crouch button, the crouch button is not pressed, and let's do our check to see if we can stand. So if m_score can't stand, let's do a little curly brace here. And we'll physicalize standing. Else, this is going to be pretty much the same, so I'm just going to copy this and replace some things. So if it cannot stand, we'll do this is going to be m crouch physics. If those haven't been applied, then we'll physicalize crouch, and then our state is going to be crouching. So this one and crouching. And one thing that I forgot to do is press pause. So we need to press pause here, and let's do a small change because I wanted to continue and recompile the code without exiting the editor and all that. Okay, so all of this should hopefully take care of our ability to crouch underneath something. So let's compile this real quick and see what we get in the engine. So these are the only two cases that we're going to look at. It's going to be crouching and then crouching moving, or moving to crouching. Alright, so let's take a look at the engine and see what we get. I'm going to turn on the physics here just to see the proxies. And so let's jump into game mode. There's all the thing here. So we go into the crouch, we go underneath something. So let's see, that doesn't really work so well. So that thing can't stand. So let's see. Just gonna try and reposition this and move it based on the grid. Let me also open the properties for this. Like I said, some of the things that let's see, where was it? Viewport. This one, properties. There we go. It's also based on the position of your little box. So that's one of the things that I've noticed. I think right now it's a little too low. So let's just move it up a little more. So right now it does tell me that it can't stand. But it looks like, let me move this up a little more. Yeah, so these are some of the issues that I've ran into like the first time I did it, and it is pretty weird why it's physicalizing into this cylinder type thing. And that's why I was kind of under the impression that it also has something to do with where this is positioned. So let's see, we have 1.5 units, 1.62. So let's crouch under this, and it's still doing that. Let's take a quick pause at this and take a look at our states. So let's review these. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything from my test case. So we have standing, and then we have crouching, so if we're moving and we're pressing the crouch button, then we don't really care because we already have that crouch button pressed, and we have moving to crouching. Else the crouch button, if crouch button is now pressed and we can't stand, then our state is that. Else is this. That looks pretty identical. And then else, if we're not moving, so and it can stand, then we physicalize standing, or we're still crouching. Else, that's crouching. And we have the breaks in all of our cases, which is good. I'm not entirely sure why this is. There's a breakdown here. Oh, because it's the break from the events. Okay. Oh, that is weird. Let me try and restart the editor here. I'm not sure if that might be causing anything for our physics. Let's see what's going on. Maybe we can figure something out. Alright, so first of all, what I want to do is actually compile this because I was just building it in debug mode. So let's do a build. Actually, I needed to exit out of this. Alright. That's one of the things that you need to remember if you run into this with this local debugger, this high reload. You actually need to build it for the next time. Alright, so that looks better. Let's take a look at the physics and see what we get. That is a little bit weird. Why it's doing that. So while it's saying that it can't stand, the physics should be applied. Let's take a look at the test one real quick. So this one works okay. Not exactly when you start moving. but in our standing phase it works fine. So one thing that I did for this, so it's at 3535. This was a designer object. Not sure if that can cause any collision issues, but let's try creating one of those in our level as well, because this was a primitive box. So let's see if we can create a designer box, and I'll try and do the same settings as I had for the other one. So this was 33, I think 35.35. Can't remember what it was, but just try and place this like that, and then scale it up on these axes. Oops. Alright, so now let's take another go at this. Oh, it's a little low. So let's move it up a little bit. So I think right now it's a little high because it says it can stand. So right now it can't stand. So there you go. I'm not entirely sure why that is the case. So right now, if you can see, it's I'm not pressing the crouch button, and it is in crouching mode. So that is right there at the top. That is the sphere for our for our shoot ray from the head, and apparently it seems to be colliding with the top of the box and not the you know, right above the head. So basically what I can see is that it's colliding with this and not with the bottom. So I'm not entirely sure why that is happening. I'd have to look that up, you know, outside of the stream. But so that was the case for our standing. So let's take a look and try and do our moving as well. So let's go back to Visual Studio, and let's take a look at our crouch moving. So where is that? That's right here. Okay, so let's see what we need to add into that. So first of all, we know that if we're moving and the button is not pressed, then we have moving to standing. So let's see. This is where we're going to have to add our can stand. So let's kind of try and break it down. So this is the case where we're actually crouching and moving at the same time. So we know we're moving, and if we release our crouch button, then what needs to happen? First of all, we need to check to see if we can stand. So if we can stand, then we can do this moving to standing. So let's move this in here. But if we can't stand, then what needs to happen is it's going to be pretty much the same, but it's going to be with crouching. So it's going to be M crouch physics. So physicalizing crouch, and then this is going to be moving to crouching. Alright, so these were the cases for our us moving. But what if, and I think in this case, I'm not entirely sure if it's needed, but it kind of made sense to me. So if we're actually from moving, then we're not moving anymore. We want to change our state to either standing or crouching. But first, we want to check to see. So right in here, if we're not pressing the crouch button anymore, we want to check to see, hey, can we stand? So let's put some curly braces just to make it a little bit more readable. It would have worked without it because they're just like one-liners, but so let's check for if it can stand. Then we know that, hey, okay, we can stand, so we can change our state to standing. And I think in this case, we could have also checked to see for physics. This might be where one of my issues could be at. Alright, but if it can't stand, then our state is still going to be crouching. Alright, so everything else is going to be the same. Alright, so since I wasn't running my debugger, I'm just going to have to shut down and recompile, or build again. Okay, so yeah, no, I did shut you down. Maybe it just there you go. Maybe it was just still catching up. Alright, so let's go into stream and let's see if we get any luck with our movement underneath. Alright, I forgot to turn on physics. Let's turn on physics. Alright, so now we go under the box. This is looking good, and there we go. So right now I'm moving, and if you look at the crouch button pressed is 0, so it means that I'm not pressing the crouch button, and so I'm moving around. And so once I go out of that, one of the things that I can't really figure out, and I need to look into it a little bit, is once it physicalizes excuse me, once it physicalizes standing, I mean, even though this is a perfectly valid physicalization, or for our case, I wanted it to have the capsule. So I'm going to look into that and hopefully be able to get back to you guys. Alright, so we have the physics. Once it goes into under something, it's not able to stand, or even though, because it can't stand, it's got something on top of it. It's behaving as I was hoping for it to behave. Maybe when I was testing, maybe part of the issue was related to me doing that recompiling, and maybe it's not really working well for physics. Who knows? With that said, one last change that I wanted to make is let's shut this off here, and that I think might be useful just from a kind of a visual perspective and maybe user perspective as well, is let's see, where was that? I wanted to, one thing that I didn't do in the last stream is actually position the camera based on the player's if it's crouching or moving crouching, because you expect the camera to kind of zoom in a little closer to the player, or move in a little closer to the player once it's in crouch mode. So in order to do that, we have this little update function in our C player component. So this is where we're going to do our little view offset up, because right now this is I think it's set as default. I'm not sure if yeah, so it's set as default to 2 right here, but we want to change that and make it something lower, and maybe a little closer to the player once it goes into crouch mode. So if you remember from the last time when we were doing our player collisions, we set our translation to the view offset forward, which this is based off of if it collides with something, and the view offset up. So the view offset forward already starts at a -1, which I think it's a good position to have the camera. But we want to change the view offset up, since we're not really changing it anywhere in here. So whenever it goes into crouch mode, we want to make that a little lower. So in order to do that, I'm just going to copy this here. This is if it's first person mode, and then so this is, we're in third person mode here. So if our current state is either crouching or moving to crouching, we want to set our view offset up to 1.5. Else, we'll just default back to 2. There we go. So let's build this and see if our camera kind of is brought in a little closer to the player. Alright, so let's go into our Stream Mixamo project here. Alright, let's open the level. And let's jump into game mode. So right now we're in we're standing. So let's see, did that work? I guess it did, because the camera is positioning lower than before, so that's good. So it makes it a little easier for when you go under an object to view where the player is, and hopefully it's going to help a little bit with physics as well. So, and once it goes from under the object to standing again, we place the camera in its new spot. Okay. So with that said, that's going to be it for this stream. Thank you all for having a look at it, stopping by, and if I think for next week, I'm probably going to do either some cleanup or we'll see if there's anything new that I can think of. I have a couple of things that I need to do a little bit of research on. But hopefully we'll be able to do another stream next week. So with that said, you guys have a great week coming up. Take care.